Hey folks, welcome to the Jake and John show. I'm John, and I'm here with my co-host Jake, who is also my brother.
What's up?
There we go. And this is our first episode, our pilot. And tonight we're going to be talking about the DNC and many other topics involved with that. And here we go.
Well, what's up, Mr. John? It's been an exciting week with the DNC news coming out.
It has been. There's so much cringe involved with this DNC that it's unbelievable. Like the first night that I was watching, it was a Monday night. I was literally melting into my fucking couch and like looking away, like looking out the window because I couldn't handle how fucking bad it was.
Yeah, and I haven't had an opportunity to watch much of it other than a few YouTube clips, but I've been reading about, what's been happening and what happened to Bernie Sanders, and it's amazing because these are people that are presumably taking the moral high ground, and there's just a abundance of fuckery going on in their convention.
Yeah, it's. I don't even know if abundance is a good enough word for the amount of fuckery that's going on there. I mean, first of all, Hillary Clinton is a criminal. She can't be trusted with secrets, with national security. There's significant evidence that points towards her and her husband being involved in the murders of 18 or 19 people. I don't remember which it was. The Benghazi incident, the reports that come out, the books that have been written about her, and the way that she treats her staff and she treats people protecting her. She's just an evil, shitty person, and it's undeniable. It's all over the place with the WikiLeaks and everything, but yet there's still this strong pulling force. I don't know if it's because she's a woman or because she pretends to care about the black community. I don't know what it is, but people, they're like zombies and they're just attached to her. It's amazing.
I saw a really funny meme yesterday, and I can't remember what the number was, but it said something like, this campaign season will cost so many billions of dollars. It should be a lot cheaper to find the worst people we can find in the country to run for president. And I think there's a lot of truth in that, because I'm going to go off on a little sidebar just on, I think the whole theme of the convention should have been email, because it has been such a critical topic in so many different ways to the entire Democratic nomination process as it's gone so far. I take kind of a personal offense to Hillary's email server and kind of the way that went down, because it makes a lot of assumptions that we are really, really stupid if we're to believe what she said after this, especially after what Comey said. And, I don't know how that's to be taken seriously and how that can just be brushed off.
Well, also on that note it also says to everybody else, and I know that this has already been, I'm sure, all over Fox News and wherever else everybody's saying it is, that if you're a rich and powerful person, particularly a Clinton, that you can get away with whatever you want, because if that was just some regular person or a low-level ranking official in the government, they would be totally fucked. They would definitely go to jail. They would be fined. They would lose their job. Something would happen to them. And yet here she is running for president, and she actually has a legitimate chance of being our next president.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing that this has been kind of allowed to go on as it has, and it's almost like they're preying on the stupidity of people. I mean, the fact that she is the party's nominee that should feel almost condescending to people. Now, I mean, admittedly, I'm not a Democrat. I don't really take affiliation with the party at all this morning. But I don't think, and I think it's important to understand that when we're talking about this, the fact that we're talking negatively about Hillary Clinton does not mean an endorsement for Trump by any stretch of the imagination. I think we have to be able to talk honestly about all the candidates, regardless of party, because otherwise you're just watching football. You're rooting for your team, and it doesn't matter if they're any good or not. It doesn't matter, if people can get away with literal crimes and just because they have money. I think anyone that thinks that Hillary didn't get away with a crime is being disingenuous. I don't think you can honestly say, yeah, she did everything right, it was no big deal. I mean, granted, when they had the hearing, a lot of that's political grandstanding, but there's a lot. That's not to say there's not good points that come out of that. I mean, would you agree with that?
Of course, and I want to reiterate that too, is just because we're going to be bashing on Hillary probably quite a bit tonight doesn't necessarily mean that we're all about Trump or we're all about this or that. I mean, I think what we can both agree on this, what we're about is the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. I gave up political, or I guess strong a political affiliation a long time ago. I think if you were to ask me today, I would say I'm a libertarian, but I say that not so much as a member of the Libertarian Party, because they do a lot of things that I think are kind of, I mean, definitely not anything on the scale of this nonsense, but things that are I would consider childish. But I'm definitely much more interested in most people being able to do whatever they want and being fiscally responsible. I think it's a matter of taking the best of both parties and leaving the worst behind.
Yeah, for sure. That's the thing. If you choose a party, you have to compromise at some point. Even if it's not something that you strongly disagree with, chances are you're not going to agree with everything your party says.
Sure.
You're not going to endorse everything that they want to do and support them. You're just not going to, if you're being honest with yourself. Because when you see anybody listening to this, that guy or that girl that is 100% down with their party. They don't care what the person does, if it's illegal or racist or what, it doesn't matter. They're going to find an excuse or they're going to dismiss it and they're going to stand by their side. And unfortunately, there's a significant portion of our population that is like that. And because of that, it's like the movie Idiocracy. It's exactly what it is. It's just like, I like you. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, I think that's about as deep as it gets. And, I've got some people on Facebook that are definitely, I guess they would consider themselves strong, Democrats. And this is only anecdotal evidence since I don't know that many people that are hardline Democrats. But I find that their position now is anti-Trump more than pro-Hillary, at least the ones that I know. And rightfully so. I mean, I think that's an okay position to take, but I'm not sure that Trump, being against Trump makes Hillary a viable candidate. Like, I don't support several of the things, or Bernie Sanders' tenets of his platform. There's several of the things in there that I firmly disagree with. But one thing I don't get from him, just my initial gut reaction to him is not he's a liar. I don't get that he's a sociopath, that he'll do anything to claw his way to the top. Now, that very well may be true of him. I don't know, but that's not my initial gut reaction, like comes off Hillary Clinton. Just a pure opportunist, someone that will change the dialect of their voice to fit in with a crowd. You've seen those retarded videos of her talking with a southern accent and things like that. Like, to me, that is so condescending. That's saying, I think you're such an idiot that I'm going to downplay this to the lowest level and expect you to respond well to it. And I guess people do sometimes, though, which is also kind of terrifying.
Yeah, and there's a video that they were playing. It was one of the DNC commercials or whatever you want to call it. So anyway, she's standing around and she has a bunch of members from a certain sector of the black community. It was like mothers of victims of police violence. It was something like that. And she's sitting there and you can see her talking to him and she's holding hands with him and praying, and she asked the preacher or pastor or whatever they're called to come over, and she's like, this is so special to me, and this like all that kind of bullshit. And you just, like, if you're a reasonably intelligent person, you can tell that she's being insincere. It's that fake voice and kind of trying to force and control the situation and make it fit to where she wants it to fit, so that she's like the, Mother Teresa. She's like the hero of the moment and she's orchestrating it. It's not authentic at all.
Yeah, it feels very much like a sales pitch to me. It's like, it's like I run into these kind of situations at work where, we're often hit up by salesmen want to sell us this product or this product. And they're very interested in a very superficial relationship with you. Like, they want to take you out to lunch. They want to, take you to Top Golf. They want to do something like that. But at the end of the day, they're not there to be your friend. And the moment they make the sale, they're out, right? But it's that whole thing. They're just in to make the sale. And I fear that our politics have turned into that, right? Like, when you have focus groups to help you hone your message, that tells me your message isn't very good. If you need focus, like, that tells me you're not confident enough in your message or your delivery to just go out there with it. And this is one thing I'm going to say about Donald Trump, in a positive fashion. I think the reason that he is doing so well, and you and I have talked about this, off the podcast, is that he owns what he says, which is an interesting dynamic in our political realm. Like, there's so many people that say such bizarre shit, but then they come back and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, or they come back to clarify their comments. And that's not to say Trump hasn't done that too, come back to clarify what he meant when he said something is obviously moronic, right? But he owns things, and I think that's what people like, because he seems like a human, right? Like, because you got people like Hillary Clinton or like Ted Cruz, or there's any number of them, right? Like, they have that politician talk, which is kind of condescending. You're like, this is the best day and we're gonna do this. They have that unnatural cadence to their voice. And I don't know, maybe it's just me because I'm kind of jaded now, but to me it's just so condescending. It's like, just talk to me like a human.
Yeah, it's disgusting because, first of all, Hillary Clinton is terrible at it. If you want to look at somebody who's good at it, even though it's fake and it's bullshit, is Obama is really good at it. It's like that fake, I'm preaching voice, and I'm, this is going to be all over YouTube and everybody's going to think it's great. But when she's doing it, she sounds fucking terrible. It is so just not sincere and so fake, and her voice is like hopping up and down octaves and her throat scratchy, and it's just like, when I'm looking at her, I don't believe any fucking thing you're saying. I know you don't care. You want money and you want power. That is the only thing that I see going on there.
Yeah, it's a really sad state. And I guess my only thing that I would ask anybody listening is to really think about what's going on. I mean, I think as a society we have to stop supporting people just because they're an opposite of who we don't support. We deserve better. We are better than that as humans. Just, there are better, like, you can't tell me Hillary Clinton is the best Democrat they have. I just don't believe that. They say she's the most experienced and this and that and this and that. Well, I can tell you what we've learned through all these years. Experience doesn't mean shit. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter how experienced you are if you're terrible at what you're about to do. It just doesn't matter. Like, President Obama, granted, he's another one I don't agree with several of his policies. They call him inexperienced, and they've said that several times. But he's also arguably been very effective at getting things done he said he was going to get done. Now, for better or worse, you have things like healthcare and all that. That's under his umbrella. You know what I mean? Whether you like it or not, he has been effective, even though he's inexperienced, right? Like, I think he's definitely, some of his inexperience shows, and I don't know if this is inexperience or just lack of class, when he does things like when they had the beer summit with that, the cop and that professor guy, like, came out there and had a beer after the cop thought that he was breaking into his house because somebody called, or I don't remember the exact details, but like, that's taken like trivial. I say trivial only because that's a city matter. That's a state matter. City, even more than state. That's a very isolated incident that should have been handled at that level. And because when things get dragged all the way into the national spotlight, it becomes this big divisive thing that doesn't make any sense. And I think maybe Obama realized that towards the end, and maybe that's why they had the beer summit, because it's generally harder to hate somebody when you meet them face to face. It's easy to talk on the internet and when you're anonymous and say, horrible things about people, because there's just not, but when you're actually talking to somebody and you have social cues and you can like see the like life in their eyes and stuff, it's harder to just be like an asshole. You know what I mean? Just an incoherent asshole. So
yeah, and I want to go back to what you were saying about experience and why it isn't important in certain circumstances. Because if we're talking about just pure political experience, I mean, what does that mean? That you're accustomed to lying and to doing fake rituals and greetings with dictators from other countries, that you're aware of all the crazy shit that goes on behind the scenes? I can see that being a benefit. But at the same time, if your experience is to be immoral and to be full of shit, that's not where we're trying to go. We're trying to go with the transparent, telling the truth, upfront, American dream type of president. That's what everybody's looking for. That's what everybody's pretending to be. I mean, maybe, okay, so Hillary Clinton, she used to be an attorney, right? Or a lawyer attorney. I think it was attorney. I don't know the fucking difference, but okay, so she knows the laws. She's obviously been she's secretary, Hillary Clinton. She has experience there. She has experience doing a lot of shit. There's no doubt about that. But if she's been a criminal basically her entire life, and has been tied to murders, obviously never convicted of anything like that, but I don't want that kind of experience. I want somebody who is honest and who's willing to go on a new path. That's really what I'm looking for.
Yeah, honesty is I think what it's all about, because it's gotten to a point where it's such a joke, and I think that Donald Trump's rise is a testament to that, because things have become so fake and contrived and disingenuous. Like, I don't think that they're fooling. Well, they're obviously fooling some people, but you're not fooling a lot of people when you get to this. I mean, you can tell when everything's so calculated, and it's just insincere. That's the way I feel when I watch. It's just insincerity. I don't believe that you believe what you're saying. I don't believe that you came to this conclusion on your own. I don't believe that you're just, one-liner zingers are impressive. That's not impressive to me. I'm more impressed. That's why I love so much when a politician goes off the rails, right? When they get off script, because you'll notice, like, especially with Hillary Clinton, she doesn't do press conferences, doesn't do these kind of things, man, because that's where things go off the rails. But that's where you really learn the character of people, because that's when they just kind of speak freely and they're not just saying the same, talking points over and over and over.
Well, speaking of that, if I'm not mistaken, part of one of the emails that was leaked, the WikiLeaks, that whole thing, it says that she was going to do an interview with MSNBC, but the thing is all of the questions were already written, and they would be given to MSNBC, so obviously her answers are rehearsed. So she doesn't make a fool of herself, there's no holes in her stories. So when you do that, obviously plenty of people do that. Movie stars do it. They want to keep their clients out of trouble.
Sure.
But that's exactly what's happening there. So if you have somebody like Donald Trump, look, maybe Donald Trump is insincere sometimes. Maybe he's a psychopath or a sociopath. Maybe he just doesn't give a fuck. But one thing you can say is one, he doesn't seem to use the teleprompters nearly as much as anybody else. None of his speeches seem to be super fake with all that, like, ridiculous raw ups and downs, and he's being the same Donald Trump we've seen in the media since, as far as I can remember, the 80s. He's being Donald Trump. He's just being himself, and sometimes he gets himself in trouble, but he owns it, And so in that sense, when he owns it, it's like, okay, well, fuck it. I guess that's who he really is. And that's just like you were just saying, is at least he's not trying to cover it up. I mean, if he says something, he'll be like, okay, I said it.
And I think that might be part of the phenomena of Trump, is that's why his supporters are willing to let go of some of the retarded things he's done. Like, I think you probably saw his Cinco de Mayo tweet he says, like, the best tostadas or whatever it is are made in Trump Tower. I love the Hispanics, like you could not craft a more condescending tweet. I mean, race-wise, even though, I have to hope that he was kind of trolling a little bit with that. I mean, it's hard to tell, but I guess where I was going with that is when people speak plainly, I think people react well to that. Maybe even if it's kind of, I don't know the right word. What am I looking for here?
It humanizes them, because here's the reality: is most people, when they're in front of other people that they don't really know, or it's a situation where they could potentially lose their job or lose business, you're yourself, but you're on your best behavior and you're choosing your answers a little bit differently. And but when you have someone like Donald Trump and he's just going for it, not giving a fuck, everybody else in their mind, even if they're not putting this all together, is like, hey, that's how I talk to my friend on the couch, when we're watching the game. Yeah, we talk some shit. We may not mean some of the things we're saying, we're just being funny, we're having fun. But that's how most people actually communicate. And so when you compare that to someone like Hillary or Obama or many other people, but so, you know what? I don't want to go off on a tangent just picking on them, because like you were saying earlier about Bernie Sanders, is I do feel like he really believes what he's saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really think that. I may not agree with everything he says, but I feel like he's pretty fucking sincere. And I think that Donald Trump is also sincere, but also it could be possible that he might have some slight sociopathic tendencies or something. I don't know. Hillary Clinton is full blown, no question.
Yeah, I'm right with you on that.
Donald Trump at the same time, he may just not give a fuck. You know, he's been a multi-millionaire, now billionaire for many, many years. He's dated and married some of the most beautiful women on earth. You know, I mean, he's living the dream. He is living the American dream.
Yeah, I think something that is interesting about him is he is one of probably the few people in the United States that's in a position to where he doesn't have to care what anybody thinks. And that's I think what's led, you know, another component that's led to his rise is that when he comes out, he has nothing to lose, right? He's not going. I don't think he was going to be heartbroken if he didn't get the nomination. You know, he's run before, but it's almost like it was to advertise for The Apprentice. You know what I mean? And I almost wonder if that isn't how he came in this time. He's like, yeah, basically I'm going to get some free publicity, you know, and bankroll this a little bit. But then, you know, his just absurdity and extreme views on things kind of took hold with people.
Yeah, you know, and before I forget, I want to go back to something, and I don't remember her last name. Maybe you know it. It's the lady from the Kelly File. It's on Fox. It's like a big show. The lady with the blonde hair.
Yeah, Megyn Kelly.
Or Megyn Kelly. There you go. And I'm pretty sure it was her, and it was in the earlier part of the debates. And she called out Trump, and she had the evidence right there that, you know, Trump, you called Rosie O'Donnell a fat pig or something like that, and he was denying it. You know, and then she was like, well, I have the proof right here. You did say it. And he's like, well, maybe I did say it. And then everybody started laughing. And I was thinking to myself, that's fucking funny, because I was laughing when I was watching it. But also, afterwards, I thought about it. And I was like, okay, if I'm being serious, does that offend me? Does that concern me that he said that he feels a certain way about women, or that that's going to embarrass our country in the future? And my honest answer is no, because Rosie O'Donnell is a fat pig. She's an annoying bitch. And I think that any normal and sensible human being would agree with that statement.
Yeah. I think the joke was that she said that he had made that comment about some other women, and that was what he said. He's like, oh, yeah, maybe Rosie O'Donnell, or something like that. I think that was his kind of get out of jail on that question card, you know, but at the same time, he seemed to own it. And, you know, they call him like Teflon Don, because none of that stuff sticks to him. And I think that is because he owns some of the stuff. And that's one thing other politicians never, ever do, right? Like if something comes out, they take two roads. They take the moral road of, that's none of your business and you're shaming my family. You know, they'll take that road, or they'll come back and they'll want to, tell you what they really meant. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, that's not what I meant. It was in this really obscure context, and I meant, you know, something completely different that doesn't make any sense. Where I think a lot of times they came back out and they were like, yeah, that's what I said. You know, that's what I feel. It would be fine. Like, I think people would react better to that, because they react negatively when they know you're lying, because it's just abundantly obvious that you're lying. But if you come out and you're not lying, even if they don't like what you said, I think even like subliminally, they can respect that at least you told the truth.
Yeah, because, okay, so both of us, many times in our lives, we've probably been embarrassed, or we've embarrassed ourselves, or we've said something stupid that we're ashamed of. And so, or even if we said something and we're not necessarily ashamed of it and we don't feel stupid about it, we realize that maybe we should apologize because it's affecting people we love or something like that. You know,
sure.
something along those lines. So that's another reason I respect Trump, because I feel like just in that sense, I can kind of relate to him. Like, you know, it goes back to sitting on the couch talking to your buddies. Like, how do you really talk versus how you talk in front of a bunch of people? You know, just be yourself. That's who I want. I want somebody who's not afraid to go outside of the politically correct boundaries that are set up now. It's because here's the reality. Some people are pieces of shit. Some women are bitches. And some people are assholes. And if you just come out and say it, dude, that's why so many people do that. You see them on Facebook, like with their fucking America themes and war Trump and all that shit.
Oh, yeah.
It's because they're like, finally, oh my God, somebody fucking said it. It's like a triumph for mankind because somebody just had the balls to cross that fucking line.
Well, I think, you know, one of his kind of key tenets that has really struck a chord with people is his take on immigration. I do think that personally that some of his views might be a little bit extreme with that, but I think immigration, you know, that issue is something that needs to be talked about honestly, and that's something that's almost impossible to do now, because if I want to talk about immigration, the topic of immigration, and you call me a racist or a xenophobe or something like that, that's not advancing. That doesn't solve any problem. There's still clearly an immigration issue. I think that you can be you can be all for kind of solving that issue and whatever that means without necessarily being a racist or a xenophobe or whatever other crazy things they come up with this. Like, I don't know that building a wall is realistic, or maybe it is, but you have to account for that though, because when people, they're called illegal aliens, at least still today, and that's for a reason. It's because it was an illegal method of entering the country, and I think we need to take that a little bit seriously and be able to talk about it plainly. And that goes for probably almost all topics, is being able to talk about things plainly and honestly with facts without it instantly turning into this stupid fest of, oh, you're this or you're that, and these big, just generalized labels that don't solve anything and pretty much effectively stop the conversation.
Yeah, and this is the thing with immigration. I have a friend who is married to a woman who has not yet gained her citizenship. See, I thought that basically if you have an American who marries a non-citizen, then basically it's almost an instant process that person becomes a citizen. But that's not true. I didn't know that. And so this person's obviously very upset with Donald Trump because he's afraid that his wife will be taken away from him. And I can respect that.
Yeah.
Because that's your wife. You love your wife.
Sure.
Of course you're going to be angry. But also, if I look at it from two sides, it's up to you to be a responsible person. If you're going to marry that person, you need to make moves to get her citizenship as quickly as possible. Not because Donald Trump's a threat, because it's the responsible thing to do.
Yeah.
And if you're going to be a responsible adult, you have to recognize there's consequences in life. This is in some cases, a matter of national security. It has to do with a lot of our debt. The amount of money it costs to arrest these people, to take them back, to do all this shit with them, shelter and feed them. And it's millions and millions of people, and it's too many. We're already in debt enough. Our taxes are high enough. So at some point, you got to cut the shit.
Yeah, I think we just have to be able to talk about it honestly, because I think there's common ground to be found. Like, in every time people talk about it, they talk about the extreme examples. Like, let's say, for instance, that a family is here. Maybe like what you're talking about, right? There's a family and they have kids, and say the mother is an illegal alien. Yeah, I agree that would probably be wrong to go take the mother away from that family. That's pretty heartless and insane. And the reason that she would be able to be here to begin with is because we haven't been proactive in enforcing our laws. And whether or not she should have been here or not to begin with, I guess it's really kind of a non-issue at this point, because she has a family here and kids. And if you're gonna take a mother away from a family, I mean, that's a pretty cold-hearted thing to do. So I think you have to honestly think about these kind of situations and what you can do for each of them. Like, maybe she shouldn't go back. Maybe she can stay with some kind of a penalty, or I don't know what that is. That's another discussion to be had, but I think you can stop the bleeding, though. You know what I mean? Like, because it kind of has to stop somewhere. You have to, at some point, you have to say, yeah, we need to stop the people crossing the border, and just so we can figure out what we're doing. And I'm not saying just stop the whole process altogether. I'm saying protect the border, start having, keeping your immigration laws in place and get them fixed. Make it a priority, make that a priority to get some new laws in place or whatever it takes to make that whole process make sense again. And that's to protect our country. It's a pretty basic thing. It's not, I don't think as soon as it degenerates into just, talks of racism and like that, I think the war is lost for both sides, because you really have gone nowhere and you're not going to go anywhere. It's just kind of, the whole conversation dies there.
Right. It's annoying when people say that it's racist because you want more strict immigration laws. They're saying you hate Mexicans. You don't want Muslims here. Blah, 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 blah.
Well, I think it's a lazy argument is what it is, because you're not dealing with the reality of it ever. You're basically like in that particular scenario, I think calling somebody a racist or something like that is a way to deflect and destroy the argument to where the talk can't even be had. Right.
What you're doing when you're doing that is you're demonizing someone who opposes your own selfish wants and needs, and it's a personal matter. You're not addressing the reality of the situation. The reality of the situation is that immigrants cost us a lot of money. There is some. I'm not saying I don't know the exact statistics, but there is crime that comes with that, and you have at some point you just have to be honest about it and talk about it. And as you said earlier, taking a mother away from her children, I'm not okay with that at all. I think it's a horrible idea.
Sure.
Because if you start doing that and you start ripping families apart, there's going to be bloodshed. There may be some people who let it happen, but there's going to be a lot of people who don't let it happen. They're going to fight the police, the immigration people, whatever Trump proposes to put together, whatever he wants to call that team of people that does that.
Right.
There's going to be violence, and there's going to be a whole lot of it. And it's just not going to work. So what is the solution to that problem? I don't know.
Yeah, I think the solution, it's like most things. The truth probably lies somewhere in the middle. It's just you have to get to a point where you can have the conversation, though. And I don't know that we're there yet. And I think, I guess I can only be hopeful that as god awful as this entire election season is that it, and several people have said it, that maybe this is the asteroid that comes in and destroys the two-party process and makes us rethink about what we're doing. Because there's got to be a better way. We're better than this. It's basic human communication. We've gotten to the point where I guess people are it's like a reality show has literally entered our political process, which is just insane.
That is what it is. It's everything is so fucking fake and so orchestrated that I think the average intelligent person, when they look at it, they're so frustrated with it, and all they see is complete bullshit that they just stop paying attention to it, which obviously makes the problem worse, because the people who really do care and they see what's actually happening, they just give up. And what you're left with is, as you said earlier, is you have two opposing teams. You have it's Team Democrat or it's Team Republican, and they fucking hate each other, and they'll compromise on anything as long as their team wins. And it just perpetuates the problem. It's not going away anytime soon.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I think it's natural to team up, or it appears to be as humans, because we do it all the time, right? It's this kind of tribalism, and it goes all the way. Our sports, everything's kind of this against this, and I think that's just taken a road, though, to where, or we've taken that so far now that our candidates have to be just at extreme opposites of the spectrum to be able to compete with each other, right? Because somebody who's closer to the center, or somebody who's, actually trying to have a conversation and talk normally, is just, they're completely washed out with just these really, extreme characters that come out. They're, these show people that are going to come out and say wild things and, are going to get away with just murder. They're going to be able to do and say whatever, no matter how extreme it is. And it makes me wonder almost if it's not kind of like, the excitement you feel before like a hurricane or something. It's not that you're excited that things are going to be destroyed or anything. It's just the excitement of experiencing something that's just so crazy and extreme. I almost wonder if that's not what people are doing by pulling these people in. It's just because they're like, fuck it, let's see what happens,
Exactly. And speaking of that, as far as it is like a reality TV show, and okay, the first thing I want to say is this. If a woman says that she's been raped, I'm not going to be the guy that's sitting there saying, no, you weren't. Because imagine if you were and somebody's saying you weren't. That's fucking horrible. That's like, I can't even imagine how terrible that would feel. And the reason that I'm bringing that up is because last night on stage at the DNC, let's see here, her name is Lena Dunham, and she's, I believe she produces the show called Girls or something on HBO.
Yeah, she's
Girl
an
Talk.
actress in it.
Yeah, so anyway, so she wrote a book, and I guess here's what I'm reading, okay? It's supposed to be an autobiography, I guess, and it's supposed to be factual. I guess that was the gist of what it was supposed to be. And so in this book, she says that she was raped by this man. And the evidence comes out later that she's never even met this person before.
Yeah, I don't know much about this story, but was this something in college?
Yes.
And then, like, somehow the internet found this dude, and he was like, what the hell?
Yeah, he's never even met her before. So not only did she almost potentially ruin this guy's life and his career and his marriage and everything. Okay, so it's so fucked up. So she not only almost ruined this guy's life, she's got the fucking balls to go on stage last night and come up there and say, as a sexual assault survivor and advocate for social justice warrior, whatever the fuck she was saying. It's like, bitch, you never got raped. How do you think that women who have actually been raped feel right now?
So I didn't actually see that. Was, I guess, when she came out and said she was a survivor or whatever, survivor based on the what took place in her book. Like, was she? I guess, was that the scenario she was using to say she was a survivor? I don't know much about her.
Well, no, because she never mentioned her book. She just assumed that everybody thought the story was true, and then look, like I said, I'm not going to tell a woman who's been raped that she hasn't been raped, but when you have overwhelming evidence that this event never, ever took place, you got to own that shit. You almost destroyed this guy's life, but on top of that, she writes in this book that she molested or came on to her sister whenever they were younger.
Yeah.
So if that's true, she's a sexual predator in a sense, I guess, and she's lying. She's a sexual assaulter, and she's lying, saying that she's been sexually assaulted. But the thing is, okay, maybe she's just a crazy person who gives a shit. But the thing is she's on stage at the fucking DNC, fucking repping Hillary Clinton. Wouldn't you think that somebody would fucking be like, look, this bitch is crazy and she's probably fucking lying. We're 99.9% repeating fucking sure that this bitch is lying. Do not put her on fucking stage, especially after what happened Monday at the DNC. And they still put her up there.
That's really bizarre. And I don't know much about her story, so I can't comment on it much. But I do think that she is a very bizarre character to have on stage at the DNC. That seems to me a very, very odd choice among tons of other really odd choices that they've had. I know a little while ago, and maybe we can play a clip of it. We were watching where I guess it's right after Sarah Silverman's speech, and she had to stay up there for a few more minutes, and the Bernie supporters, I guess, were chanting Bernie or whatever, and she'd come down and she told them they're being ridiculous. And this is something that I take issue with, and I'm definitely siding with the Bernie supporters on this, because I think it's insane to tell people that they can't be at their party's convention and support the candidate that they support. I don't, asking for unity behind someone that obviously a lot of people don't like, that's a tall order to begin with, but it's very disrespectful, I think, to tell people what they can and can't do. I realize that it's their convention, and I've come to realize over time that the conventions and the DNC and the RNC really have very little to do with the people. It's this very small elitist club that really runs our country, right? This is the oligarchy that runs our country, is these two little weaselly clubs, and they're able to tell you basically what can and can't happen. Now, fortunately for the sake of all of us, they've been doing a very poor job, and we've gotten, I guess, some great entertainment out of it at the kind of at the risk of our entire process going down the tubes. But I think there's some really good stuff to be seen here. Let me see if I can pull up that clip. You want to tell us a little bit about what you saw there?
Yeah, you know what? While you're searching for that clip, I just want to say something real quick. A lot of this has to do with the Hillary support. We're talking about everybody who's chanting Bernie, and they were booing all through the first day of the DNC. It was constant boos every time Hillary Clinton's name was mentioned. It's because they don't want her, because she's an evil, law-breaking cunt. But anyway, so the thing is it's a novelty to have the first woman president,
right?
And all your daughters get to stay up late tonight and watch the possibilities of being a woman. Why would you let your daughter watch this fucking murderous, psychotic fucking criminal and want them to be like that? How fucking irresponsible can you possibly be?
Yeah, and that's another one of those things. You get into this whole like social justice warrior mentality that I can't even begin to understand it. So to me, it's so illogical to think like that I can't wrap my mind around it to understand even what they're thinking with that. But if your primary reason for voting for someone is because of their sex or because of their color, think about how insane that is for a minute, because that's the things we claim shouldn't matter, right? We claim that what sex you are shouldn't matter. We claim what color you are shouldn't matter. So there'll be the right time. You know, I realize we're coming, you know, out of the original civil rights movement, and we're still, you know, progressing on that path, and that's okay. That's great. But let's not put people in office for the sake of that. Let's pick the right people, you know, regardless of what color they are, what sex they are. If they're good, they're good. I mean, we need to be honest about that. And I guess I just beg anybody, if you're supporting somebody because of their race or their sex, please stop and think about what you're doing. That's not being helpful to anyone.
And also, if you are picking them just for that reason, what if they end up embarrassing you? I mean, you're labeling just because of their sex they can do this and this, and then they turn out to be a fucking moron. Then you've hurt your cause even further. Like, any way you look at it, it's just wrong. It needs to be the most qualified person.
Sure. Like, I mean, you would be hard-pressed to convince me that Hillary Clinton is the best woman for the job. There's almost nothing you could say that would make me believe that. I mean, in light of the... you know, there's several things she's done or has presumably done that I don't know a ton about. I mean, I understand some of the basic complaints, but, you know, just the email scandal alone, if you think about just how insane that is, you have someone who went to the NSA and asked for some kind of, you know, phone, presumably a BlackBerry or something like that. They told her, no, we're not going to do that because we don't want to support this crazy thing. But, hey, we've got this other smartphone. Well, smart-ish kind of a phone. I mean, granted, this thing was a brick, but this is our secure thing. Well, she rejected that and was like, fuck it. I'm going to, you know, I can't use that phone. I think that's, I don't know it verbatim, but it was basically along the lines of, Hillary can't use that. She can't use that computer. It's too difficult, is basically what they were saying. So you're telling me that using some kind of email client on something, and I'm a techie guy, sorry if I'm getting into this, is too difficult for you, but it's within your competence level to run an email infrastructure at your house.
And to be the next president.
You know, if you're thinking about that, just the logic of that, I think it's really, really hard to follow. So it's hard for me to believe that she's the best we got when it comes to that.
I couldn't agree more. It's totally absurd.
You want to take a quick listen to this Sarah Silverman, the end of her speech here, and just kind of get the vibe of the room here at the DNC.
Yeah. Go ahead and play the clip.
All right, give me 1 second here. Here we go.
That was pretty good, Sarah.
You can hear they're already kind of riled up in the background. Bernie.
Hillary.
Yeah, if her cringe muscle isn't tightening up there.
Bernie, can I just say?
Here we go.
To the Bernie or bust people, you're being ridiculous.
Is that ridiculous?
French, so I figured I'd add that.
Is it?
I don't think it is. That fake nervous
my
laugh.
speech, and now we have to stretch. Oh, I have so much I want to say.
Well,
I'm so glad you didn't.
okay, you know, listen,
Bernie chance.
Listen what you did. This is a comedian.
Now they're trying to save face. Oh, it's a comedian comedy.
She said, thank God they can fix this in post.
Yeah, literally. They're going to edit this out, is what she's saying.
You're going to edit out the truth.
And if you look at her face right now,
You know-
I don't think she's joking. She's definitely, she looks perturbed. Like, she looks angry at what's happening right now. She doesn't look like, haha, this is funny.
So she thought in her mind that she was going to go up there and be this glorious celebrity and everybody's going to cheer. And that's not what happened. They cut her speech off. Okay, so when you cut someone's speech off, the reason that they do that, as far as I can tell, is because what you're saying is fucking stupid or it's not fitting the narrative. So they cut it off, and then they told him to stretch, to wait. I believe his name was Paul Simon, the musician, so that Paul Simon, because they were saying he wasn't ready yet or something like that. If he's not fucking ready yet, let her finish the speech. But they didn't let her do that because I don't even remember what she said. It was so fucking stupid. I was melting into my couch. Like, I couldn't handle it. Like, I wanted to fucking hit the mute button. It was that terrible.
Oh, I'll have to watch this full thing later. Yeah, unfortunately, I haven't been able to watch much of this yet. I just see the headlines, and it just looks like I mean, granted, most of the stuff I see is on Drudge, but man, it's made to look just like a 3-ring circus, man. Like there's just bears on bikes fucking riding around all over the place over there.
Yeah, and let's get into this a little bit more about the speakers, all the different speakers that they have there. Okay, so for example, Bill Clinton. I watched every fucking second of his speech last night. Bill Clinton is a master speaker. He's awesome at it. It's undeniable. But that doesn't, just because you're giving an amazing speech and you're hitting all the punchlines and you know what I mean, doesn't mean what you're saying is true, and it doesn't mean that the person you're representing is a good person. Just because you're portraying this loving father that romantically fell in love with Hillary Clinton 40 years ago.
Yeah.
He went on this big spiel, but he left out the part where he was getting his dick sucked by Monica Lewinsky.
Sure.
So you're so in love with this woman, and every day when you look at her still, you're so in love with her. What happened? I mean, how many times has he got his dick sucked? He got accused of rape recently and supposedly pedophilia of some form, like maybe a teenager. I don't remember the exact age.
Yeah, I haven't seen this yet.
Okay, but given his history and given that we're pretty fucking sure that both him and Hillary are super criminals and they're super fucking immoral, I tend to believe it's probably more possible that he's guilty than he's not. I'm not going to say he is, but he could be.
Well, they're such a strange couple. I think it's easy to come to that conclusion because they obviously live to be politicians, which is a very, very bizarre thing to begin with. It's to live your life to make yourself look better in the public eye. You think about how strange that is already, how kind of just unnatural that is. But then you have two people that are doing it, and I don't know. I think it makes a lot of people uncomfortable, and rightfully so. You hear a lot of people say that Bill Clinton was a really great president, and I was kind of young at the time, but I believe for the most part that's probably. I mean, I don't know if he's a great president, but I think he was probably an okay president. Nothing too terribly insane happened, but it seems like what happened after the fact, right? Like after kind of Hillary's rise to power and her becoming, this kind of larger than life character, based off of this, and then you kind of see the way they work together. Though they become like this really powerful political team, and then you start getting these kind of conspiracy type of things happening behind the scenes where certain people linked to them have ended up dead and all this. And I have no idea if any of that's true, but it's interesting. Like, I mean, is it true? Because they are very, very powerful people, as was just shown. Like, and that's one thing we didn't even talk about yet. When they basically didn't press charges on Hillary. Remember that, like the day before, Bill Clinton just happens to be on the tarmac with Loretta, and what are the chances of that? And then he has like a half hour, an hour meeting, like in a plane with her, a private meeting. Like, what is that? Even if they did just talk about their grandkids or whatever she claimed, why would you even do that? Why would you put yourself in that position to where everyone's going to speculate that you were in there cutting some kind of deal or, in there high-fiving that Hillary was getting off? Because would you agree? Is that just a strange thing to do?
It's idiotic. And if you're that experienced and that educated, then you know that is a stupid fucking move. If you're going to do it, you can't let people know you're going to do it. But that's not the way it went down. And so an intelligent person has to safely assume that there's some bullshit going on.
Yeah, I mean, it's very hard for me to believe that the topic didn't come up. I mean, this is one of the biggest things going on in the United States right now. It's hard for me to believe. Like, had they seen each other in passing, like they walked by and they were like, "Hey, how you doing? How are the grandkids?" And it was like a kind of a 60-second organic deal. Like, I could believe that, but like a private meeting in a plane is suspect. I mean, I think people are right to be suspect of that.
Highly
I don't think you're being a conspiracy theorist dipshit to think that is strange. I think it's well within the realm of reason to think something's odd there.
Yeah, see, here's the thing, too, is, okay, just because you don't have every fucking, like, detail and fact and DNA in a video, that doesn't mean that you can't assume something and look further into it and start to put pieces together to build a case. And it seems like people don't want you to do that. They just immediately say, "Oh, I mean, you weren't there. You don't have a video. You don't know what happened. And that's true. I don't know. But if I put all the pieces together, given the time frame, it seems pretty fucking fishy.
Yeah, it's suspect at best.
At best. So, but enough about Bill Clinton, the great speaker, and also who is a huge asshole piece of shit, in my opinion. That's not a fact. It's just an opinion. But also, okay, I want to go into this, all right? So, last night, I believe it was 7 mothers, black women, whose children were killed in violence or police violence, and they came on stage to speak out against police violence and unity and, understanding and all this stuff. I'm with that.
Sure.
Totally. But here's the thing. Mike Brown's mother was on stage. So at this point, given all the evidence, now that time's passed, things have cooled down, Mike Brown was guilty. He assaulted a police officer, he charged him, and he got killed. And that, maybe he was young and maybe he was stupid, but he was a massive young man, and he made a poor decision, and he got killed. It sucks, man. I mean, the truth is he probably could have been reformed. Who knows? Maybe he could have been if he had the right people around him, but that's not what happened. He made a terrible decision, and he got killed. And so the problem that I have with this is I understand a grieving mother. Of course it hurts. I can't even imagine how bad that hurts. But you can't go on stage as if your son was a victim of police brutality when that's not what happened and be taken seriously. Anybody who's looked into the case cannot take that. They cannot take you seriously.
I think this is a subject that I think all parties involved need to take very seriously. I don't think that we do ourselves any justice by being insincere or disingenuous with this topic, because there are undoubtedly cases where there may be police brutality. Probably, I would say there definitely are cases like that, right? But not every case has really proven to be that. I think the jury's still out on the 2 most recent, and I feel terrible. I can't even remember their names at the moment. But the one in Baton Rouge, and then the other somewhere in the north.
The guy in Baton Rouge.
Philando, I think, was the other guy.
And Alton Sterling. I
believe.
Yeah.
So the reason I say the jury's still out on that is because we still don't know what led up to that, right? Now, I know the way the Philando video was shown was after he'd already been shot. So I don't know. Did the cop jump the gun, or was the guy going, for his wallet or whatever, even after he was told, don't do that? I don't know what happened there. And I think this makes a really good case for the police body cameras. That's a direction I feel like we have to go with this, so we can have accurate information. Because I think and I hate to say this about people that get killed because it sounds callous, but if we cry wolf about the topic of police brutality, I think we take away from the seriousness of it when it does happen. Because, and obviously these people are in terrible pain when their family members get killed. I get it, dude. Like, I will allow a lot of irrationality right after something happens, because that's such a horrible time for somebody, for a mother. I can't even imagine, dude, something happening to one of my kids. You know what I mean? And so I think you can allow some irrationality there, but I think it's important to not, like I said, don't cry wolf. Don't call something what it's not. Because, unfortunately, some of these situations obviously do happen because, some of these guys make really bad decisions. They do things they shouldn't have done. Situation gets out of hand and somebody gets shot.
Well, speaking of Philando, I think that's how you say his name. A video surfaced, and I think it was July 4th when that video came out. It was days before he was killed by the police officer. Mm-hmm. And in this video, he's sitting in the passenger seat, his girlfriend's driving, and their child or the woman's child, one of the two, I'm not sure if it's their mutual child, is in the back seat. But the thing is they're sitting there smoking weed in the car with like I think it's a 4-year-old child in the back seat. Yeah. So when I look at that, it makes me wonder, what kind of decisions do you make in life?
Yeah, sure. Because you can tell. Well, you can't tell what happened, but those kind of, yeah, you're right. That's important because it does tell you about people's decision making. So, one of the things I found most interesting about his case, and we don't have a lot of details on it, but it's interesting to me that he had a concealed carry license, because that's not something. I'm not saying no criminals do that, but that's generally not a criminal enterprise, right? Like, that's not something that you go out and do if you're a criminal and plan on doing something bad, which leads me to believe, I mean, he obviously knew what the protocol was for having a weapon if you're pulled over by the police, and how that's supposed to go down. And admittedly, I don't know the exact thing, but I know you're supposed to tell him, hey, I'm a concealed carry license, holder. I have a firearm. This is where it's at. I'm pretty sure it's something like that. And then there's a protocol you follow so the cops stay safe, you stay safe, so these things don't happen, right? And so that there's not this rogue firearm that scares the cops, spooks them, and ends up shooting somebody. So that's why I really want to know what happened in those moments. Right before he got shot, what happened there? Because that's such a strange situation.
Well, what was also strange was the way that his girlfriend was acting, the driver.
Yeah,
the way she was so
nonchalant, like
there. Yeah, it was really strange to me, which makes me question intelligence. It makes me question her sobriety. There's a lot of questions that I have there. But also, if I'm not mistaken, he actually had the gun out. I don't think it was in his hand, but it was laying out visibly.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I'm not sure.
And then he explained that he had a concealed carry license, and supposedly he was reaching for his wallet, but the cop was saying, don't reach for it. And then he reached for whatever he was reaching for, and he got shot, because you can hear the police officer saying, I told him not to move. I told him not to reach for it.
And I think that's the critical point, right? That's the piece we don't know. Like, was the cop saying, because, if an officer is telling you, don't reach for it, and if he's talking about your wallet, whatever he's talking about, if he's saying, don't reach for it, and you've got a firearm there, and that's like a known fact, I think that already, the tension of the situation's already risen a little bit. And if you're making crazy moves, you run at risk of that. But that's why I'd say I'm not going headfirst on either side on that, because I don't really understand what happened in the lead up. Yeah,
see, I don't either. It's just speculation, but I'm thinking this. If he approaches a car, I forgot why he pulled him over. Was it a taillight or something? I think that's what it was.
Yeah,
And so
something so benign.
If you approach a car, let's just look at like basic human psychology. You approach a car, you're a police officer, and you smell marijuana. Mm-hmm. The first thing that goes through your mind, even if you're not fully processing it, is that this person in this vehicle is prepared to make bad decisions, and they're willing to go outside of the laws of society. So that's just a small flag. That doesn't mean that the person's dangerous, but it's a flag to, okay, I need to look out what's going on here. And so what was he doing? I mean, did he say don't reach for it, and the gun was on his left side in the center console, and he was reaching with his right hand into his wallet? I mean, I don't know what happened. But the thing is if a cop tells you to stop or to not reach for it, you need to freeze. Even if he was a rookie and he's kind of freaking out, just be an intelligent person. Use social intelligence. Pick up on social cues. But okay, cool. I'm not going to move. Whatever you say, I'm just going to do it. And if the police officer ends up breaking the law, then you go and get him investigated after. Just play the game. It's tense. There's weapons out. There's drugs in the car. Just calm the fuck down.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because unless the cop is like a complete psychopath, I can't imagine a scenario where a rational human being shoots someone in another car that also has a woman in the front seat and a child in the back seat. Like, because if you think about all these facts together, I have to believe that something wild, I hope something wild happened that led up to that, because it just seems it's like such an extreme situation for what was going on. You get pulled over for a taillight. That should be like a no-brainer. That should be like, if you have a concealed carry, I have a gun. This is where it's at. And then you go through whatever that protocol is. The police tell you what to do, and you give them your license, insurance, or whatever, and then you go on your way. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see how you go from busted taillight to shot in the car. Just that easy. And I'm not saying that it didn't happen in a real shitty way. It very well may have. I mean, that's entirely possible. But just looking at it, it seems really unlikely.
Yeah, well, here's the thing too is, I'm looking at her character. If you're smoking weed in a car and you're making an Instagram video and Philando's sitting on your right and your kid's in the back, and you're just being all hood and shit, I'm questioning your character and I'm questioning your decision making. And I am going to tend to probably not necessarily believe everything you say, because from my point of view, you're a moron.
Yeah.
And you might be willing to do some dumb shit, and there's no question that you'd be willing to lie. That's just the way that I feel based off of my life experience, the people that I know. I don't really believe her story. I think that some of it may be true, but I'm not going to jump to conclusions, but I'm going to wait and see what happens. But I think that there's some gaps in her story. Maybe it's from trauma, from like how crazy everything was. She forgot. I don't know. But there's definitely some type of bullshit surrounding that situation.
Well, I mean, there's seriously, I mean, there's definitely a gap in what happened in the lead up between like the time that they were pulled over and the time he got shot. Like that entire piece is missing. And I think that's where those body cameras are going to be so critical. Because I think, and I'm going to mess this story up because I don't know enough about it. I just kind of read some of the articles, but I believe something that happened in Houston here just recently. Someone got shot and the body camera actually kind of deflated the situation, if I'm not mistaken, because you were able to see what the lead up was and what happened, even though I watched a little bit of the video and it's one of those, it's tough to watch because when that goes down, man, you're seeing people's raw emotions and just, but I think that the body camera though kept that from becoming this just like extreme issue where everybody's missing facts. Because that's really what it boils down to is when we're missing facts, it's hard for me to jump on one side or the other when we don't really even know what happened. So I guess that's all I would say is like, if you're listening to this, please don't cry wolf, I mean, just work on the facts because I think you can make a lot stronger case to do the reforms where they need to happen. And on both sides, right? Like, I mean, because surely, maybe the police stations need, I don't know how you fix that. Maybe you do need some kind of reform in that. But at the same time, if you throw cases at it that are clearly not police brutality, I think you actually weaken your case and that actually slows down progress on getting anything solved.
I couldn't agree more. I'm 100% with the body cams, and crying wolf is a dangerous game because how many times in the past few years, with the exception of a few cases or maybe more than a few, but it's just been everybody immediately just jumps on police brutality, and then the facts come out of what actually happened, sometimes with video footage or multiple eyewitnesses, and you learn that it wasn't police brutality. And somehow that situation and all the supporters of it just kind of magically disappear. And there's no apologies or admitting that I was wrong or, you know what I mean? It just goes away, and then the next time it happens, they cry wolf again. And so it makes people cynical. It makes the public be like, yeah, fuck them, because they just get sick of hearing about it because they just assume it's bullshit.
Yeah, I think there's no better way to ruin a movement than overexposure. I think that's probably true of almost anything is if, people get to a point where they've heard enough of it and then it loses its impact even when it's important.
Indeed. And also, I wanted to, this is something we discussed before the podcast started, and we wanted to touch on identity. So this could range from gender identity to your skin color, racial identity, whatever you want to call it. Okay, this is a touchy subject, but here's the thing. If you're a white woman, that is what you are. So if you identify as a black woman, that doesn't make you a black woman. It's not. It's so fucking absurd that it's mind-blowing. But this social justice warrior system is behind it, and it's so strongly behind it that it's actually becoming a real thing. To where you have men who are allowed in women's bathrooms at Target. I don't know if that's still going on, but that's 100% true.
Yeah, and
that's not cool, man. If anything, if you're going to play that game, then let's make a transgender bathroom. If we're just not talking about race or anything, we're talking about gender. You got to make a transgender bathroom.
I almost feel like on that subject with the bathrooms and everything, I almost feel like we're fighting a non-issue, right? Like I think if someone, and I'm totally talking out of my ass here because I don't know shit about the transgender community or any of that stuff, but I feel like if someone is actually committed to that lifestyle, they're probably, if they're identifying as a woman, they probably have been using women's restrooms if that's something they wanted to do. And I just haven't heard about this being an issue. I have not. I mean, if you get some dude in there that looks like me in the women's restroom, yeah, that's fucked up, man. Like that, yes, that's going to make people uncomfortable, and rightfully so. And I think we just have to kind of keep our eyes on reality here. But I almost feel like this is a non-issue. I feel like it's a problem. We're trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist. Like maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there are cases of this and they're isolated, but I don't think that this is like a fucking widespread pandemic. I don't think there's this huge issue of transgender women or men, I don't even know how to say it right, and I apologize, that are trying to go into these like men's or women's restrooms, and it's causing a big ordeal.
Right. Well, that's the thing is, well, it seems like people are abusing it. Like in the Target situation, you got a guy who just blatantly looks like just some guy. He's like, yeah, but I'm a woman, so I'm going to go in here and I'm going to smell the tampons in the trash.
And that's another, and that's the thing is, I think when you make a big deal out of it's become such a big deal that it invites that kind of idiocy into it, right? Like it's become such a big deal. Now there's like a microscope on this where there wasn't before. Because like if you, I guess. And I know there's all kinds of ranges of this, but like if you look like a woman and you are identifying as a woman, and admittedly, this is not a concept that I totally understand, so take it for what it is. But if you think you're a woman, or I'm saying that wrong already, if you identify as a woman and that's what you are, and you go into a women's bathroom, was that an issue? And maybe it was. I don't know, but I do not believe it was a widespread issue. I think that by putting a microscope on this, you invite this scrutiny that just wouldn't have been there otherwise.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And but let's move on from that, because the transgender thing is like, if you're on hormones and you're having surgeries and, or maybe you cut your parts off, whatever you did, and you really believe that, or you want to be a woman, I mean, cool, whatever, it doesn't matter. And if your female peers around you are cool with you using their bathroom and stuff, I don't care at all. Like if a woman who's turned into a man, I guess, comes into the men's bathroom, I don't fucking care at all.
To me, it's a non-issue, realistically. I mean, I guess the only thing I would say on that might be controversial to some is that I think I don't frown on people if they find the idea uncomfortable, because
of course not.
It's something I struggle with. I find it is uncomfortable for me. Maybe that'll change over time. I don't know. It's not something that I think a ton about, but it is unusual. I mean, I think it's unusual, and something about it makes me a little uncomfortable. And I don't think it's like a phobia. I don't think that's the right word for it, because that's not really what it is. It's just, it is unusual to me, and it's not something I understand. And I think there's a lot of people like that.
Of course. And for me, it's more of, if I had any feelings on it, which I don't have any strong feelings, but if it's a transgender man to female that is going into a female's bathroom, I can understand why that's uncomfortable. Totally. It's because men are they're stronger and larger. They have more bone density on average, and they could potentially be a predator. But I mean, I don't know. I've never heard of any large issue of transgender women being predators in female bathrooms. I've never heard of anything like that.
Yeah, I think it's a straw man. I think, this is another thing where it's another one of those areas where I think we're several years away from being able to have an honest conversation about it.
Right.
Because there's a lot of, the traditional values of, with religion and stuff. I'm not going to get into, with their thoughts on homosexuality and all that, but in that, even though that's not even necessarily what it is per se, but I don't really know where I was going with that, but I think there's going to have to be a lot of tolerance on both sides, and everybody just is wondering what matters to you in your life. Does it impact you at all if someone is transgender? So, I mean, I think we just have to think about this. Like, I don't care at all. Like, I have no feeling on it whatsoever, realistically. Like I said, it makes me a little uncomfortable, like if I'm around someone, only just because, maybe that goes away over time. I don't know. But I think there needs to be tolerance there too, because it is unusual, and you can't just demonize people because they notice that something's unusual either. I think that, we have to be kind of cognizant on that on both sides, and not just throw each other in the gutter for thinking what we think.
Yeah, I agree with you totally. I think the comedian Bill Burr, he made a joke about it, and it's like, he's obviously not homophobic. He has nothing against homosexuals, but like if he was at IHOP or something and he turns over and he sees two dudes just making out, just going at it, he kind of just gives them that, like it's like kind of like an unnatural surprise to him. He doesn't want to cause them harm or put them in jail. He's just like, it's like, and a lot of people feel that way, and it's just being honest. It's because it just seems unusual to you, because in your community and the people you hang out with, it's like you're just not used to that shit.
Yeah. So, yeah, sure.
But our country's come a long way in regard to that, definitely. in the last even like 10, 20 years. So that's a good thing, you know?
I think I think with all that, I think it kind of where we were going, really what we were talking about earlier more with it is just, you get into this really strange situation where we're kind of going backwards in thought on that in some ways. Like, if we have to be able to talk about these things honestly, and we have to be able to not agree and that be okay sometimes. Like, we have to be able to think that something is unusual and that be okay. Now, I say that, and this is going to be kind of more my libertarian sensibilities coming out, is you should be able to free to do whatever you want as long as it's not negatively impacting other people. And I think we'd all be better for that if that's kind of how we start to think about that a little more.
I think so. And on that note, let's wrap it up. And if you guys like what you hear and you want to hear some more of it, hit us up at the Jake and John, it's jakeandjohnshow.com, which will have a list of all of our podcasts and blogs.
Yeah, we're pretty early in, so I just got the site up today, so we're going to be working on getting into iTunes, getting everything going. And another thing I want to mention, this isn't going to be like a purely political podcast. We're keeping this pretty open, just talk about whatever we want. There just happens to be a lot of craziness going on right now, so there's lots to latch on to. I think we're going to be commissioning some really cool artwork here coming up for the show image in iTunes, and hell, we might even make some shirts or something later on. I don't know how often we're going to produce this. Right now, I think we're aiming for once a week, as long as it makes sense. I don't know how long we're planning to run normally either. Right now, I guess we're a little bit over an hour, so I think we'll probably aim for at least an hour, and just depending on what's going on, we'll kind of gauge it from there. But John, you got anything else on that?
Nope. I think that about wraps it up. It was a good first show. Not too many fuck-ups, I don't think. But again, check us out at jakeandjohnshow.com. And
yeah, it'll be great. And I guess we'll see you next week.
Bada bing. Peace out.